All right, everyone. Welcome once again. It is Friday, and that means it's time for manufacturing e-commerce success. And wow, are we excited today? We've got a repeat offender with us today, Scott O from Inc. Magazine, Kurt Anderson, my friend over here, brother from another mother co-host, and we got Nicole Donnelly down there. I can't think that well yet, Nicole. I'm getting there though, and we're just excited. I'm just so excited, and I'm just going to say, welcome everyone. Take it away, Kurt.
Hey guys, happy Friday, man. It's like beautiful fall football season's in gear. Just, the leaves are starting to change. It's just a wonderful time of year. And, around the corner, we always start thinking about like Inc. 5000. And so what we did is we decided to bring in the one, the only Scott Omelianuk, Scotty O from the editor-in-chief of Inc. Magazine. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, Kurt. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. And you're right. The Inc. 5000 conference and gala is only 2 months from now as the live event, right? The list was just published. So yeah, it is that time of year.
It is. 'Tis the season for the Inc. 5000. So Nicole, I know as a fourth generation entrepreneur, you are just absolutely thrilled and just on the edge of your seat for this conversation. So guys, thank you for joining us. Everybody out there, boy, drop us a note. Let us know that you're there. Bring the questions for Scott. We might have a silver bullet for you at the end of how you can make the Inc. 5000. So Scott, as Damon mentioned, you are a repeat offender. You've been on the program before, and boy, you came back. You're a glutton for punishment, and we appreciate you more than you can imagine. I'm going to change. I'm going to throw a little curveball at you from last time. Are you sitting down? Are you ready for this one? All right, Scott. I asked you last time that you were on. Scott, when you were a little guy growing up, who was your hero? Who was your hero as a little guy growing up?
Oh gosh. Well, I think I had sports heroes. And then probably, gosh, I don't like this idea of dating myself. Talking about this. But I would say like maybe when I was in high school, I read Lee Iacocca's biography. And I was like very thrilled and impressed by that. Read a lot by Tom Peters for some reason, right? Like I did not end up in business, after high school at all. My path to this point in my career is very circuitous. But I was fascinated in those early days by like that sort of, after the lethargy and stagflation and stuff like that of the 70s and questions about American future in the 80s, like all of these guys sort of, and they were guys, unfortunately, there weren't a lot of women who had the same perch. I think that's changing, not rapidly enough, but it will be a good thing. I was fascinated by them and what they were able to create and how they were able to track excellence and just not be ordinary,
Hey, I was a huge Lee Iacocca fan. Damon, I don't know about you. Nicole, this is before your time. And so, the gentleman that turned around Chrysler and of course, Tom Peters, In Search of Excellence, 2 phenomenal books. I love that. So great. We haven't had Lee Iacocca on the show.
First.
He helped me get through engineering school, believe it or not.
Lee Iacocca
got a D in physics. I remember he got a D in physics, and I remember I was going through physics. It was hard. I'm like, Lee Iacocca got a D in physics, and look at him today. I was like, boom.
Well, thank God for
you.
Hey, Damon, might have to.
We got lots of comments. I'm going to start rolling through them here.
A few shout outs here. Darcy's here today. Darcy, happy Friday, my friend. Sending you lots of love.
John.
We've got John Baglino. Philip is here. So again, guys, drop us a note. Let us know that you're out there.
Got Sarah in here. She was on a couple of weeks.
Hey, Sarah's here. I need to give a shout out.
Got someone wishing us well. We don't know who you are. You change that setting. We can see you.
All right, so let's dig in. That was a perfect little segue. So you talked about In Search of Excellence, and I think you talked about your career path. Now we took a deep dive in your career path last time. We won't go as deep, but just for folks that didn't catch you on the last round, if I have this correct, Scotty O, garbage man to the editor-in-chief of Inc. Magazine. Curious minds want to know, can you please enlighten how on earth does one become the
So-
editor-in-chief from that path?
Not to dismiss what you just said, but so the garbage man in the New York City fashion district,
Yep.
to style editor of GQ magazine,
Yeah.
Carpenter,
And Esquire, right? I think Esquire
and Esquire after that, Carpenter to the editor-in-chief managing director of This Old House, which is the television show that has been on PBS, now I believe Roku, but for 45 years.
Yep.
All coincidence, Kurt. Like there's no message in there. That's a drunkard's walk of a career, basically. But I will say, and to get back to the excellence point, I was really fortunate early in my career at GQ to be able to interview people like Ralph Lauren and Giorgio Armani and Calvin Klein. These people who created brands, worlds really out of nothing. And they weren't worlds we needed to inhabit, but in their creation of these brands, they made us want to inhabit them, right? They made us feel compelled to be there, to wear the clothes, to, whether it was like, Ralph Lauren and the Great Gatsby, or Giorgio Armani and American Gigolo, whatever it was, like you needed to be that. And it was a fascinating lesson for me in branding, in marketing. But the other common thread that they had was, and I can remember Ralph Lauren saying this to me, is like, never not do your best, always be excellent. And if you can't be excellent, don't bother. Right. And like, he showed that, like he built $1 billion empire just by, quality. Now we can argue about whether that quality is there or not, or the dollar amount is worth the quality, or any of that stuff. But the fact is, at that time in our world, it was, his clothes were a hallmark of quality that we hadn't really experienced before in a major way, or in a mass market way. Right. So that's a thing in my career that's stuck with me. It's just like bring the best.
Bring the best. How about that? I think we've had multiple mic drops already, Nicole, but I'm going to go with, if you can't be excellent, just don't bother. So let's go here. I'm going to dive right in. You repeat offender. Scotty O's been on the program before. And so we're going to go with a little different direction of questions. I have been a raving Inc. magazine fan for decades, showing my age. And so Bernie Goldhirsch, am I saying that correctly, was the founder in 1979. What I'd love to talk about is a little bit like how, Inc. is always on the cutting edge, changing with the times. There's, my goodness gracious, the amount of disruption that's gone on over the past 30 years, let alone just in the past 2 or 3 years, Scott.
Yeah.
How do you carry that legacy that Bernie laid in 1979 to stay on that cutting edge? I know you've been preaching that lately. Let's go there.
Yeah, I think for me, and this would apply to other brands that I've run, not just Inc., this is something hard for founders and CEOs of companies to do when there's always other more pressing things. But it's for me, it's about taking a step back and really examining your brand purpose. And to me, brand purpose is not CSR. It's not it's not ESG. It's not who you give money to as a cause or corporate good or any of that stuff. It is why, all other things being equal, someone wants to do business with you. What is it that is not what you do, but like sort of underlines how what you do is, right? So for example, at This Old House, people would be familiar with the television show and these handful of contractors who were very good at their job, and who would, we didn't say this publicly, but who would get homeowners to spend $500,000 or $1 million on a state-of-the-art renovation, and we'd cover that on our television show. And if you were just a casual observer, you were like, oh, that's about remodeling, right? It's about the reveal. It's about the before and after. All of the things, by the way, that went into the creation of HGTV, right? Which in many ways, This Old House was the driver of. I had this sense when I arrived there, when I arrived there, the brand was already 30 years old. And I just had this sense that there was something more than remodeling, that had people who grew up with a television show, watching it on their parents' living room floor, now watching it with their own children. I just knew there had to be something else there. And this is at a time, early to mid decade of the 2000s, first decade of the 2000s, when media was under great disruption. And so there were lots of reasons to think we should just fold up the tent, and it was a good run, and that was it. But I asked to do some research. And in doing that research, we uncovered what I think the brand purpose of Inc. was. And that it's in talking to people, we learned it wasn't about best practices. It wasn't about a big remodel or reveal. It wasn't about perfect craftsmanship. You couldn't bend a nail like we all do, right? Like that wouldn't be good. What the show provided was a sense of confidence that people who watched it could create a safe space for their own families. Think about the emotional impact of creating a safe space for your family versus a fancy remodel. And once you have that, right? Once you have this is why we're here. We're here to help people feel like they can create the castle their family needs to live in, no matter what else is going on in the world. If we can do that, now think about all of the other ways we can go to market with that idea. So if television ends tomorrow, how do we, as a trusted brand, still convey how to create a safe space for your family? If none of us have money and we can't do a kitchen, well, maybe we can do, some pillows on the sofa. That kind of difference, right? So suddenly you realize there are all of these other brand opportunities available to you when you've discovered and hold and believe in your purpose. Different audiences, different product lines, different ways to market all suddenly present themselves. And I would even go so far as to say, it's the way to future-proof your business, right? So my parent company was Time Inc., the world's largest publisher, owned by Time Warner, largest media entertainment company when I was at this old house. Both of those companies are gone, right? They were the largest of what they were, and they're both gone because of changing consumer habits, changing marketplace. This old house is still here. My boss used to say, I just don't get this TV thing. We're a magazine company. And I just used to look at him and think, this is not a magazine company. You're saying it's a magazine company because that's the way we're going to market right now. But this is the company that owned Sports Illustrated and People and Time and Fortune, right? And all it's In Style, all these magazines. People, we are a information and entertainment company that just happens to be, and very trusted, right? Scrupulously trusted, that just happens to be delivering its product in a magazine format. And when the world shifts to another, consumer behavior shifts to another way, we have to be, still that information company, but now we're iPad, iPhone, whatever it might be, whatever it might be, right? But somehow, big companies get ossified. Quarterly goals are important. CEOs don't like to take risks. So what I argue is that you don't have to be either of this old house. And we really reinvented in many ways this old house, launched mobile first products for millennials, like lots of different things that we did. But what I urge people to do is take some portion of their time and think about what their purpose really is. Why does someone want to do business with me? What is the special sauce that I have that makes me different, no matter what I'm building right now or doing right now? What is the differentiator? And in that, see where the next opportunities are, because we are in a time of enormous change, right? Like Fortune 500 companies used to have a 60-year orbit in the Fortune 500, right? Now they have 13 years, right? And they're gone.
Really?
And someone, this is very disorienting when you think about it. Someone said, we are, to me, at a time when the change in the world has never been faster.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be slower than it is today. Right.
Exactly.
So how do you, in this face of all this disruption, and it's coming regardless of what you do or how confident you are in your current methods, disruption is coming. It just exists. Nothing lasts forever. Right. So how do you best set yourself up for sort of leaping from one rock to the other across the river, right? As you have to get to the other side, because of change. So at Inc., Kurt, we started out as a print magazine, but our fundamental purpose is to support the American entrepreneur. And so for me, that meant, okay, sure, print magazine, and we still have that, and people still value it. But at a certain point, it was a transition to digital. At a certain point, our recognition programs became really, like the Inc. 5000, became really, really important to founders and the people who wanted to get to them. More recently, community has become a profoundly significant thing for us, right? And so we lean, and so that's like events and community and paid mastermind groups and things like that. And just shifting our focus. We're still about entrepreneurship. We're still storytellers, but that storytelling might happen on a call like this, or it might happen in a 2,000 person auditorium, or it might happen over a dinner with 30 people. And we might be facilitating introductions and partnerships and things like that. Or as we talked right before we came on about, facilitating a conversation around mental health of founders being important, right? So still have a reason for people to give us money. It's just a bit different than it was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I just talked a lot. I'm sorry.
No, but that was, go ahead, Nicole. Sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah. I was just going to say, I loved what you said about when you were working on this old house, you wanted to get clear on what was the reason why this was, resonating so well. And you mentioned that you did research to really uncover that. And I think that's a really great point for like any brands out there who are really struggling to know and figure out what their like core brand purpose is to take the time to do that research and to talk to your customers and to really hone in specifically on what it is that makes you unique, and makes you special. And if you can really dial that in, then I think that's where the magic is.
And it's not, it's not like we make the best nails. That can't be it, right? Because tomorrow people are going to start using screws, and after they use screws, they're going to use glue, right? So it's got to be, deeper than that, and it's got to be, entrepreneurs are fascinating to me. One, because I have a healthy ego and I failed at it. So I'm fascinated by these people who can do what I can't do. But the other part of it is that they are curious. They are first adopters. They are people who are not afraid of uncertainty. And yet so many of us, when we get to a point in our business where we've had some success, we suddenly think we know it all. We stop being as curious. We're like, well, that's the way we've always done it and we've been fine. Like, you'll be fine until the day you're not fine at all, right? And so I think it's just like keeping those childlike eyes open the whole time is a really important thing.
Yeah.
Nicole, we were just talking about that this morning about looking at things with eyes of wonder. I just absolutely love that theme. And we have a lot in the chat box.
That's the comments. I'm going to start pulling them up here. We got Mashad. Happy to be here. Mike Wolf's here today. Awesome.
Hey, Mike.
Awesome.
Happy Friday. We got
Jason.
Hey, Jason, our buddy Jason. Darcy's dropping a fun comment.
Yeah, Darcy dropped one down here. Got Ravinder. So let's get down to Darcy's here. Looked up old house. This old house. Fix a dumbwaiter in her house. Awesome.
For the record, I thought Darcy was referring to me. I'm like, hey, a dumbwaiter. And hey, Paula, our teammate here, Paula. Spent many days watching her contractor dad. I was bored, but he did it with love. Absolutely love that. Sarah's got some comments. Mike, hey, Rob is today. Happy Friday, Rob. So again, guys, keep those comments coming. Sarah, thank you for your comments. We're here with Scott, editor-in-chief of Inc. Business Media, making a little transition. We were talking about consistency of purpose through disruption. And I love what you said, Scott, about like the mission of Inc. probably in 1979 with Bernie's, helping the American entrepreneur, right? Do I have that correct? Yep. Helping the American entrepreneur.
We say supporting, but
supporting. Pretty, man, that is pretty concise. And whether it's 1979, where there's no internet, there's no Google, there's no social media, no AI, or in 2023, you're still staying core to that mission. It's just like, how does the vehicle change? I love the way you're describing that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I caught you, Damon, you're going to love this. You gave a little analogy that I want to share. Was Paul McCartney on Carpool Karaoke or something like what does Paul McCartney, now for you young folks out there, he was from the Beatles. You can Google it. I love Billy Crystal has a great joke. He came home and his daughter said, Dad, is it true that Paul McCartney was in a band before Wings? I love that. So I just want to show. Okay.
Oh, that hurts.
Scott, what does Paul McCartney and carpool karaoke have to do with consistency of purpose through disruption?
So I find it's really like I find fascinating the parallels between us as people and our businesses. And so I think there's personal purpose too. And I think a lot of folks struggle with that. And, you know, I would say someone saw my LinkedIn profile and said, wow, you've had a really interesting career. And like, as I said earlier, it's like, no, to me, my career is completely accidental. Right. But so I've been in media as an editor and a writer. I am a professor of marketing and entrepreneurship at university. I briefly had a consulting business, and there are a couple of other things in there. And only after the fact, because I didn't have the good sense to sort of do this work ahead of time, did I realize in looking at what seemed like this very disparate set of jobs in different places, media that was unrelated to Inc., unrelated to GQ, unrelated to This Old House, for example, television work I did that doesn't, you know, reflect this. Did I realize that there actually is a thread there too, right? And for me, that's about education and facilitation, right? It's about sharing information with people to help them be better. And once I saw that and realized, hey, you're good at this, it started to make career decisions easier. It started to not just be about money, but about something else that was really important and helped be, again, just like business purpose, helped be a filter for what opportunities I should take and which ones I shouldn't. And at the end of the day, how I would define how I would be happy, which might not be with all the money in the world, but it might mean, you know, doing the equivalent of less than minimum wage as a professor when you put the hours in, right? There's something there. Paul McCartney to me is fascinating. And if you have the opportunity to watch Carpool Karaoke, which this clip is on YouTube of, he goes with James Corden back to Liverpool, and they go to Penny Lane. They visit the barbershop. He goes to his house and pops into the house he grew up in, which is now a museum. He stops on the street and talks to people. At one moment, he's in the car singing "Let It Be" with James Corden, who's talking about his own mom's death, because that's essentially what the story behind "Let It Be" is. And in another moment, he's by himself entirely, shot from across the street with a harmonica and a hat on the ground in a bus shelter, just busking, playing music, waiting for someone to drop coins into a hat. And then the climax of it, he is goes to a pub, and we're in the pub. People are drinking. It's lunchtime. Pub is bustling. There's a big curtain up. The curtain drops, and there's Paul McCartney, starts playing music. The people in the pub, none of them were alive, Kurt, when Beatlemania was a thing, and let alone, probably not even alive when Wings was a thing, right? But they recognize him, and the emotion in the room is so fascinating, because it's just like, what a delight this is suddenly, right? What a delight. And that was the thing that was consistent through every one of the segments in Carpool Karaoke. It's like him dropping into the Penny Lane barbershop, right? So this place that he wrote a song about literally more than 50 years ago. Standing on a street corner. Here's like one of the world's greatest musicians being a street music performer. Here's someone like giving people a lifelong story because he showed up at their pub lunch and played a handful of songs and then like asked for a beer to be passed over the crowd so he could drink with them, right? Like Paul McCartney happened to be a remarkable musician and songwriter and performer. But like the purpose, the thing that underlies that for me, again, to get to the underlying, he was that. But Paul McCartney could have had no musical talent at all. He could have been a bus driver, and he still would have found a way to bring delight to people's lives, right? So that's what I mean about going deeper and trying to see underneath what the purpose is. And if you think about it that way, it's hard for me to talk about or watch that segment without actually tearing up, because it's just kind of amazing, right? To just like connect with your purpose in such a way, and then still to want to do it. So I don't know, as a Beatle, you know, he's 15 years old, he's in his early 80s now, right? So we're talking about like for more than 60 years, like do this happily. What would you do for more than 60 years happily?
Yeah.
You know?
That's
all right.
incredible.
We're just,
Yeah.
God, if you remember from last time,
Just
we have these things called moments of silence. There are no words to follow that right this second. So we're just going to let everybody just savor the Paul McCartney, whatever your favorite Beatles song is. Everybody has one. I don't care who you are. Just let that resonate and just think about Paul McCartney just sharing and spreading his delight. Nicole, what did you think of that story?
Oh, you got me overclamped over here. Honestly, I'm just so inspired by it. It's really inspiring for anyone who's listening to just think about, like, what is it that you came to this world to do? How is it that you, with your own unique gifts, are meant to serve the people that you come in contact with? And like Paul McCartney, that's such a beautiful, humble example of service that he's given. And like, how can we just really try to, become self-aware and understand and explore what is it within each of us that we're meant to give and serve in that same way? Because everyone has that, their own unique personal purpose. Everyone has it. And that's what we're here to do. And I'm just super inspired by that. I think that's even, and when you find that personal purpose, you're absolutely right. Like, that's going to help with whatever you do. If and when you build your own brand or whatever, with your own, it fills your whole life and it just fills the world. So I'm just very inspired by that story. It's very, it's so humbling. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and
thank you.
that's exactly, Nicole. And when you think about musicians, look, the Rolling Stones just released an album 18 years after their last one. Why are these people, Paul McCartney, the Rolling Stones, it's not because they're musicians. It's because there's something inside of them that wants them to create these feelings and emotions that they have to let out to the world, I think. And, Paul McCartney doing that, it's incredible to see some people doing that, because it's not about fame or money or influence or anything. It's inside of them when you see that.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you can do that, like you said, he's been doing it for 65 years. It's got to just be part of you.
Right.
Otherwise you get tired.
For 65 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, just think they're like singing the same songs over and over and over again. Like, you can imagine, like, you have to really tune into your purpose to be able to do those things. There's more to it than that.
Hey, Damon, so let's hit some comments. We got some, again, guys, I know we're top of the hour. So if you're cutting out on us, boy, you got a call that you're jumping on, come back and catch the replay, catch the rest of Scotty O here, editor-in-chief of Inc. Magazine or Inc. Business Media. We're having an amazing, incredible conversation. If you're just joining us, hey, we're here with Scott, the editor-in-chief of Inc. Business Media. And we're geeking out about Paul McCartney. We're talking about Mick Jagger. I just took my mother for her 80th birthday to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Woo! So cool.
She is the exact same age as Mick Jagger, just for the record.
Oh, God.
I think she's within a year of Paul McCartney as well. And so love the chat. Bring the comments up here, guys.
Keep them coming.
Well, all right, so let's go here. Scott, we love to talk with our manufacturers. The Inc. You just said that Inc. 5000 just came out. Guys, grab your Inc. magazine. For those old guys that still like to have that paper in your hand, go to digital. You can get the app. Check out Inc. Boy, I've been a raving Inc. fan since I can remember, since I got out of college 100 years ago. So you want to follow Inc. And let's go here. Scott O, the official. I know, Nicole, you've got a wonderfully growing business. It's just booming. You're rocking it. We need to get you on that Inc. 5000 list. Scotty O, what does it take for my dear friend Nicole and all of our esteemed guests, everybody in the audience here? How do we get on the Inc. 5000 list?
It is nothing I can help with.
There you go.
We're hard work, right?
No question. And I can help hard work. Certainly anyone wants to.
That's right.
I work for minimum wage. That's cool. But the Inc. 5000 is data driven, and it's down to your own growth and your growth across 3 years essentially of time, right? Because we believe that anyone can have one good year. It's easier to push or pull sales to have 2 good years. It's harder to have 3 years of growth. So we track in every class of honorees. We track their growth across 3 years. We ask for financial documentation. And including tax returns in some cases, or CFO, notarized CFO. What's the word? I can't think of the word.
Yeah,
reviewed financials.
Financials. And attesting to their revenues, and then we see where the chips fall. And there are lots of good companies, certainly, who don't make the list. And that doesn't mean anything other than that they haven't had what, the larger body of companies has as a growth percentage. This year, I think the median is something around 2,600%, which seems right. That seems like quite a bit. Some people think, oh, what's the big deal? I'm number 4,999, right? And I say, well, even if you're 4,999, even if you're the number 5,000 company in the Inc. 5,000, you still overall largely represent about the top 0.5% of all companies in the United States in terms of growth. And so we've learned over time that this is a profoundly important metric for founders, whether it's helping them with investment, whether it's helping their hiring in a very competitive hiring time. It seems like, if you're an Inc. 5,000 company, you're fairly established and have a picky employee pool to work in. That's helpful. It's helpful for people with clients that they couldn't get before suddenly see that. And I say that because companies like Timberland, like Patagonia, Under Armour, Zappos, Oracle, Microsoft, all have been Inc. 5,000 companies, or Facebook, now Meta, Inc. 5,000 company at one point, right? So there are a lot of household name graduates from the list. Not everyone, right? There are lots of less known, but still very, very successful, generational wealth successful people and companies on the list. But it's, I think, an important list, and it's one because there is no thumbing the scales on, because it's metric driven, means a lot.
Yeah.
And I do not get to see it until the list is closed and it's done and it's given to me by a data team is the first time I get to see it. So, we really
Very
don't
cool.
influence it at all.
And that's great that you're using data to drive who gets on the list, because as you said, your list then has validity that almost any other, many other, I'll say, don't have, because you get to the list for different reasons.
That's right.
That's super cool. I'm glad you shared that, because you can't fake it.
Right.
You can't fake it.
Can't thumb the scale. Nicole, what do you have?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, have you seen any commonality, like with, these companies, obviously they share that same like high growth over 3 years. Have you seen some commonalities in terms of across those companies, what they did to create that growth? What was it about their culture? I'm sure brand purpose would be a huge thing, but like intrinsically about like how those companies have been built and grown. Have you noticed any,
I mean, there's no question that some of it relates to what we talked about earlier, just like the unrelenting pursuit of being excellent, right? And focus, and knowing when to shift focus too, right? CEOs they're CEOs are remarkable people, right? There's no question about that. But the kind of CEO you are to start a company might not be the same kind of CEO you need to be 2 or 5 or 10 years into a company, because challenges change and we have skills. Some of us are more adaptable than others. Some of us are more amenable to change than others, right? So I do think it takes a very nimble CEO, including being nimble enough to know when to take yourself as a founder out of the daily decision making. But more broadly, I think we see echoes of what's going on in the economy. So more recently, healthcare companies and staffing companies have been at the top of the Inc. 5000 list. And staffing companies are interesting because to me, because it shows how we're choosing to hire differently, and how the workforce is choosing to come to work differently. Logistics companies, right? As we increasingly become less brick and mortar, say, and more omni-channel in distribution. So logistics companies have become, occupied a larger percentage of the list. The manufacturing companies we have on the list, I would say, have two things in common. They, again, like, let's say three things. One, there is, again, that measure of excellence. Two, they are full service, right? They're not, you're a manufacturing company, say, not making your own product, contract manufacturing. You provide full service, and from design on through to prototyping to the finished product. Three, and I think this is really fundamental and often ends up being a significant point in the people we cover editorially, which is to say, actually write stories about, not just put on the 5,000 list. Their willingness to resolve problems for their clients in an hour, like literally in an hour, right? To know that if they're a parts manufacturer for somebody and Amazon has a problem in one of its distribution plants, that, they will say, like, think about what it means for an Amazon plant to be shut down for a day, right? All of the people. That just doesn't cost Amazon money. It costs everyone engaged with Amazon money. And so, like, we can't let that go 24 hours. We got to be there within the hour and have a solution the next morning. That willingness, right? And if you think about that, and you think about offshore manufacturing, say, and just the difference in approach of that, and I'm not, not saying bad things about offshore manufacturing, but I just think it's a different animal. And so the folks on the 5,000 who are manufacturing have sort of prioritized service, speed, and excellence over price, and over time that has paid off for them. Right. Well, clearly has paid off them. They're on the list because it has paid off for them.
Yeah. And this is great because it's service, speed, and excellence.
Yeah. I got to write that down.
That's what I did. I was like, dude, you just went like, boom, right into the meat of
it. I got it.
Yeah, I got it.
It's going back to my This Old House days. There's like, there's the three things: good, fast, and cheap, and you can't have those. But like, you actually can have high quality service, a high quality product, and high quality, overall as your operating principle. It just takes the commitment, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, Damon, Jeff Long is in the house here. We've got some great comments here. And hey, pull up Darcy's comment. Let's read that one. Proud of my manufacturing friends at family-owned D3 Glass LLC and my shower door who made the 5,000. Darcy, send big congratulations to our friend. And I love where you're going here, Scott, because the thing is, hey, everybody out there, let's say that together. Ready, Damon, Nicole, Scott? Let's say it on three. We're going to do it on three. We're going to do service, speed, and excellence. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Service, speed, and excellence.
Because Paul McCartney the Beatles have no concern with us coming into their territory.
We have no threat to the Beatles.
We didn't harmonize there.
Mike did a little better than I did. So, but what you're sharing, Scott, is so powerful because, like, this is not like a secret sauce or a secret. This is not the unique competitive advantage. Last time you were on the show, we talked about Blockbuster, Kodak. You've mentioned some, Time Magazine. Like folks that just took their eye, global domination and took their eye off the ball, right? It's absolutely insane. And it takes it takes a Netflix, it takes an Uber, it takes somebody to come in and completely disrupt the market. So let's slide in. I know, man, we how are we doing on time?
I know we got time because you said one thing I think that drives all of these, and that's that unrelenting pursuit of excellence. I mean, it really does, because when you have that CEO, that leadership team, and everyone throughout the organization that's doing that, it makes a difference to the person that's designing that product, making that product, delivering that product, servicing the customer with that product. And as you said, it's hard to do that if you've got a global supply chain and other things where you can't control, and get that speed to service in minutes or hours instead of days and weeks. It's just,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a problem, and but I think the way to do it, right? Whether regardless, let's leave supply chain out of it for a minute, because right, there are capabilities that exist in some places and not in others. You know, I know
Yes.
some a woman who owns a weighted blanket company who's been on the Inc. 5000. She would have loved to make her blankets in the United States. Literally, equipment did not exist to do it. It took her 5 years to get to the place where she could import the equipment to make the blanket. So like there are reasons, you know, that can be problematic there. But in terms of excellence overall, I think if there is a way for you, and this is something I talk about every day. I actually talk about it as a professor when we assign entrepreneurial projects to students. No one spends enough time with or talking about their consumer, I think, right? Doesn't spend enough time with to understand what their needs are, and doesn't spend enough time talking about them to the rest of the team, right? And so this is something I find really important. It's like Inc. is completely meaningless without its audience. And Inc. is incredibly powerful with its audience. And so it's important for everyone who works for me to always be thinking, not what I want, not what they want, but what does our audience want? What does our consumer want? What do they need from us, right? What do they need to feel comfortable about us at the end of the day? And that's just to be in that headspace all the time is so useful. And I do believe everyone at an organization, whether it's someone frontline answering phones for the companies that still have someone answering phones, right on up through the top, to be thinking about, how does what I do, and I get it, there are, you know, central services and things like that where it doesn't seem like you have much of a touch point with consumers. But the fact is, you know, you could be looking at purchase orders or invoices all day as an accountant and see something in there that will suggest a new opportunity or a way to reduce friction for clients, whatever it is, right? And I think the more, and we all know that people who feel like their job matters, you know, come to work fully showing up. Like if we can get everyone thinking in that way, and I know I'm talking at a very high level right now and not practically at all, but I think it makes a huge difference. When they come to work as advocates for the people we sell to, it's really an interestingly different dynamic.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nicole. What I'd love to go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
What I was you go ahead, Nicole.
I was just going to say, like, it starts at the top. Like, I think every business, the bigger you get, you have two things that are always going to happen that you're going to be fighting against is inertia and entropy, right? Like, the bigger it gets, there's chaos that's happening, and you just keep doing things always, and you have to fight against that. So I think, to your point, Scott, like, it has to start at the top, and the more you can have a feedback loop from your top executive team where they are like, have a direct communication with your frontline employees and understand exactly what's happening, and that then the whole organization will start to feel that, and then you can combat that natural propensity for companies to go towards entropy and inertia.
Yeah, and Kurt, when you mentioned, you know, a Blockbuster and Kodak before, right? Like, there's a reason that, like, they got big, they got complacent, they got distant from their consumer, and so they didn't understand what people really valued in terms of, like, the entertainment Blockbuster delivered, which was ease, and then it got easier, but they didn't care about the easier because they were, you know, convinced DVDs and CDs physically picked up, or you know, Kodak, you know, getting back to purpose, Kodak was about capturing memories, right? It wasn't about printing paper and developing chemicals, right? It was, so how, as a company, if they invented the digital camera sensor, right, and then they put it on a shelf, how much more relevant today they would be in every device we own if they only understood that, right? So that's the challenge, right? To remember to stay close to your customer at every level of the organization and not be complacent, and then you can harness or ride the entropy or the chaos, right? Either one.
Absolutely. You know what's hysterical, Scott? So last time you were on the show, we brought up Kodak, and ironically, I had just spoken with a gentleman who was a longtime Kodak veteran. He was there back in the 80s and 90s, and like shared like a deep, intimate story about like they had digital. The gentleman that founded it, it was a young guy fresh out of college, founded digital photography in the 70s. Paid for by Kodak, and they parked it. So anyway, we won't beat up Kodak today. But let's slide here. What I absolutely love, a lot of great comments. Hey, Allison DeFord is here, guys.
Allison.
Allison, sending you tons of love.
And yours too. Yes, Allison.
Hey, Whitney Houston is in the house today. Paula's dropping another comment. So guys, thank you for dropping the comments. If you're just popping in, we're here with Scotty O, the editor-in-chief of Inc. Business Media. Scott, long time, Damon and I were a little bit on the older side. So, it was always like, hey, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to like have strong, broad shoulders. You need to take it all on yourself. You need to have super thick skin and never crack, never show any vulnerability. That's really changed. And if like you can't take care of yourself, have that really rock solid mental, aptitude, and Damon, we dug into this deep last time. Nicole, I know this is a super hot topic on your end. Let's talk about the value and the, how important it is from the mental health standpoint for entrepreneurs.
I think it's important, right? I don't know how to stress it enough. I like to say, friends with Chip Conley, the author, the mentor to Brian Chesky back at Airbnb when that started. He owned his own hotel chain as well and sold that, but now mostly known as an author for Wisdom at Work, Peak. Those are two of his books. He likes to say that the CEO isn't just the chief executive officer, it's the chief emotional officer as well too, right? And when we think about that, and you think about entrepreneurship has all kinds of ripples, right? They can have really good ripples in a community for personal and family, but those ripples aren't just about money or success. Those ripples can be emotional too. And if you're the leader of a company and your head isn't right, think about how you telegraph that to other people. Think about the dominoes that fall out from that space, right? Now do it again and think about each person who's, domino you've tipped over because you've had a bad day, goes home and tips over their family's dominoes and or their team's dominoes. Like just think about sort of the ripple effects of not being your as best as you can be in a mental health perspective, in a physical health perspective. But like they're both important and almost inextricable, right? We know that now. That's not sort of a debatable issue. And so as much as you as a founder might think that there's another fire to put out today, as much as you might think that this deal has to get done, this proposal has to get written, this hire needs to be made, you really have to ask yourself, does it, or will it get made better if I take some time for me, right? Jeff Bezos, when he was still at Amazon, would talk about meditation and how he felt meditation made him better. And he said, like, okay, even if I'm wrong, and like as important as I think it is, maybe if it only makes me 5% better, think about 5% better at a company of Amazon scale, what that can mean. And so I challenge all of the folks on this call to think about that too. Like, how can you take the time to make yourself 5% more grounded, 5% less stressed, 5% more focused, whatever that takes. And in almost all cases, the way you get there isn't by going back to email as soon as, or Slack or whatever it is, as soon as you're off here, right? It's going to be doing something else and taking that time for yourself and think about what the impact of that could be.
Yeah. It's you said it right though when you wrote it down here. The ripple effect of not being your best in physical and mental state. I mean, as a leader in a company, and he articulated well with like Bezos, but even in a small company, right? You can come in there, and if you're not having a good day, how does that ripple all the way through in your business?
Even more important because there are fewer buffers, right? Allison in the comments just said the CEO who leads with empathy and mindfulness that creates beloved and healthy brands, right? Like That's true. I just don't think enough of us necessarily understand, you know, how, a lot of CEOs are driven by anger and like the need to achieve and overcome something from way in their past, right? That is driving them.
Yeah.
That can create like this, like, not the most empathetic people. And it can get to you, get you to a certain place, right? You can use that energy, the anger, that as fuel to get to some place, but it doesn't necessarily carry you forward, right? So
Yeah.
I think there is an opportunity, and it sounds like, woo, and it sounds like BS, but I think there's an opportunity to take a step back, and I say this from personal experience, like take a step back and see what it is that's driving you. Are you as empathetic? I used to be someone, for personal circumstances, like I was very tough on myself, right? It was the way I grew up, and my default response would be, well, however I treated someone, it would be like, well, I wasn't nearly as bad to them as I am to myself, right? Like, I wasn't as hard on them as I am on myself. And I thought that was the answer, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was not the answer. And it took a long time to figure that out, right? So I do think empathy is incredibly important in so many ways for business leaders. I think it's a hard thing just to have, right? I think we need to really do a lot of self-examination. One of the things we see now, and a lot of our founders are using what we euphemistically call plant medicines and psychedelics in therapy to help them be more connected with others, to help them be more empathetic, to help them sort of drop the ego. You don't lose it entirely, and you can still use it when you want to, but to sort of right size the ego so their interactions with people are just that little bit better, that 5% or that 10% that we're talking about.
Yeah. I know, Kurt.
Darcy's got a great comment here. She's like, our work is all about emotions. The old fashioned, it's not personal. It's just work is a failing strategy. Darcy, couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Lots of great comments here. So
I got to put Allison's up here. So you did already. Because this explains it so well. I mean, it does. It goes all the way through business into family, everything. And it's,
and we've got a great question here from your friend, Nicole. Brian's in the house today.
Oh,
hey,
Brian.
Brian.
Hi, friend.
And Nicole, I know this is, you're the content guru, content queen. And so this ties in. How important is storytelling for a founder? I think that ties in with this conversation where we're at. What are your thoughts there, Scott?
I obviously you're talking about my wheelhouse business, right? And so I think story is incredibly important. I think it's incredibly important to us as creatures, right? I think, I heard a neuroscientist talk about how in human development, companies, businesses are very recent. And so we use the same default brain structure to think about, categorize, memorize, and deal with businesses as we do personal relationships. The brain is really interesting that way, where it adapts and reuses parts of itself. It's smart in that way. But right now, because business, evolutionarily speaking, is such a recent development, we use the same parts of our brain, the same thinking frameworks to think about businesses as we do about people. Our personal relationships are all about story. And so I think one of the insights there is how important storytelling is for all businesses, because it's the way people will most easily connect with you, because that's the way they're connecting with other people, and we're using that same mental framework. And so the more storytelling you can do, the more insight you can give the consumer into who you are and why you're doing it, the more of the brand purpose you can share, the more you can let folks know that behind the business, there are other folks. I think the better off you are. And it doesn't have to be slick, and it doesn't have to be sophisticated, right? It's the same kind of comments that you would leave somewhere on a social media platform you can retool to be messages for your company. There's a very interesting thing coming with Web3 where you will basically break down the walled gardens of all social media platforms, so that, say, you subscribe to Threads, which is, Facebook's answer or Meta's answer to Twitter. All of your other social media one day will also show up in the Threads app, and vice versa. No more walled gardens. This is a huge opportunity for businesses to take advantage of that and be on platforms now, just sharing little bits and pieces, doing anything rather than nothing. Starting to cultivate storytelling, I think, is really, really important.
I love all of that. I think in manufacturing, we hear a lot, Scott, that when we talk about this all the time, like, we got to share your founder's story and talk about what's happening behind the scenes. And it's so funny because a lot of times in manufacturing, they don't think their stories are interesting. So a lot of times we hear like, oh, there's nothing special about my story, But it is, when they actually start sharing it, it is it's interesting to other people.
They're not personally empathetic enough, right? So they're dismissing their own story. Yes. But it's true. It's like I've talked to young journalists about how business is us, right? Like, every story that's important can be told through the lens of a business story, or every business that has a story fits the Joseph Campbell frameworks or what have you, right? David and Goliath, underdogs, whatever it is, overcoming remarkable obstacles, going on the hero's journey and succeeding. All of those things are fundamental. And I think, it's really important for folks to understand that, like, you're not just sitting there with your business waiting to make money. Sure, that's useful, but you're actually there to try and help them have a better experience, get a better product, make their lives easier in some fashion. And you're thinking about that all the time, right? And that little bit of personal connection, if people come to understand that, that'll make a big difference.
Okay, Scott, dude, we could keep you here all day. And I know you're a busy man. You're running business media, for goodness gracious. You're hanging out with us. So let's pull up a few comments. We got, hey, Sarah, thank you. Allison has a great comment here. And so all sorts of just great comments. Thank you, everybody, for what you're dropping here.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Let's start. I know we're bottom of the hour. Let's start winding down. So, Scott, I have 2 questions left for you. Words of wisdom, inspiration, how we can get our folks out there on that Inc. 5000. What are your parting thoughts of that driving force of inspiration for our entrepreneurial friends out there?
To me, I think we're living in an absolutely fascinating time, right? It's a little bit scary, but there are also so many tools at our disposal now to do remarkable things that have never, tools that have never existed before, that can make the ideas we have more of a reality or more realizable. And so I'm ultimately, despite political conflict, despite environmental issues, despite geopolitical issues, all of which can leave you very pessimistic. I am ultimately really optimistic that together, with all the remarkable tools technology has brought us, have a really bright future, and it's up to us just to pick it up and run with it. It's there. And what's exciting to me about the job I have, and why I think it's the greatest job in the world, is I get to interact with people like are on this call, as are on this call today, or in the Inc. 5000 and elsewhere, who are just creating our futures. And it's kind of remarkable. It's humbling. It's wonderful, but you're all doing it. And that's amazing.
Okay. Just savor that one. Okay. Let's wrap up. First off, I want to thank everybody in the audience. Thank you for joining us today. And boy, if you've been hanging out with us for the past, 58 minutes, I'm looking at right now, it's a great opportunity to stand up, give a little stretch. And how about a big round of applause for Scotty O, editor-in-chief of Inc. Business Media. Nicole, takeaways, parting thoughts. What are you walking away with from this wonderful conversation with Scott today?
Oh, can I talk to you more, Scott?
Maybe we'll let these guys go, but sure.
Yeah. Damon, we're crowding the room here. We need Damon to get the old guys out of here. Damon, your parting thoughts, words of wisdom, your feedback. What did you hear today?
two things that stuck out with me today. You know, mental health of founders and business leaders. Come on, we got to get that right before we do it. And then optimism. I think, yeah, we're in a changing time, but there are so many cool things. Yes, screw the negative stuff. I mean, there's so much good that we can do with the tools we have now. Entrepreneurs and business leaders can create great things.
Yeah.
Raging optimism. Darcy, Jeff Long, John Buglino, Allison, Sarah, everybody out there dropped a comment. Everybody out there, that's whatever you're doing today, thank you. Boy, just take this away of what an incredibly inspirational conversation. Scott, one last question for you, my friend.
This is a good one.
Scott, are you a baseball fan by any chance?
I do watch baseball.
Favorite team?
Gosh, so growing up, I was a Mets fan. Then the Mets won the World Series in 1986, and I was done with them. And I went and sided with the rest of my family who were and had always been Yankee fans.
My daughter and I were just at a Yankee game the other day. We got great pictures of Judge. So let's go here for a second, okay? Bottom of the ninth, you're in the Bronx, Yankee Stadium, okay? Guy on second, bottom of the ninth, tied score. There's somebody on second base, and they need, we've got to get out of here. We got to end this game. Manager Aaron Boone looks down the bench and he says, "Hey, Scotty O, get up there, hit in the winning run." You grab a bat, take a couple swings. You're walking up to the plate. We were talking music earlier. What is your walk-up song? You're hitting the winning run of the Yankee game. What is your walk-up song?
Nicole, help me out. I have no idea.
I know, right?
Let It Be, right? We'll go with Let It Be.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Yeah, whatever happens.
Bungalow Bill by the Beatles. Right?
That's a good one.
All right. We'll just, you know what? How about, I can't get no satisfaction. That's what I Scott. So that's, we'll give a shout out to Mick Jagger. So, all right, guys, hey, we will wind down. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate you. Thank you, Damon. Scotty, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. Our entrepreneurs are truly the heroes of our American economy. The mission that's been going strong at Inc. Since 1979. Thank you for your leadership and carrying the torch and into, decades ahead. And we salute you. We applaud you. We admire you. We appreciate you. Guys, go out and just be someone's inspiration, just like our friend Scott. God bless you guys. Damon, take it away, brother.
All right. Thanks again, everyone that was listening today. The people are making the comments. Just keep them coming, man. We love it because getting you involved in the conversations. Scott, great insights today. Into the Inc. 5000, into the mental health and the optimism around the business climate in general. It's so great to be able to talk to you again. Nicole, Kurt, awesome. That's all I can say. Everyone else, thanks so much. We'll be back again. We're out for now. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Thanks, guys.